Hi, welcome to Hemp Foundation Talks, where we listen to the heartbeats of the hemp industry and learn the celebrations, challenges, and discoveries from hemp leaders and advocates from around the world. Hi, I'm Rebecca, International Business Officer with the Hemp Foundation, and I'll be your host. Today's guest is Marty Clemons. Marty Clemons is a social entrepreneur passionate about finding regenerative solutions to systemic issues. She is currently chair of the board of the Southeast Hemp Association. She has been working to build the hemp industry in North Carolina and the Southeast since 2015. Marty is a partner in the Industrial Hemp Summit, a B2B multi-stakeholder collaboration focused on building the US hemp industry. Previously, Marty lived in Chicago, Illinois, where she was a corporate and securities lawyer with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission and Northern Trust, as well as chief counsel of ABN AMRO Asset Management USA and general counsel of Market Liquidity Network. Welcome, Marty. It's glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So please tell me, what got you started in the hemp industry?
Yeah, my introduction to the hemp industry was via medical cannabis. And I was an investor in medical cannabis in Illinois in about 2013 is when Illinois started going medical. So I was introduced from a finder who was looking for investors in different groups and got excited about cannabis as a substitute for opiates. I was really excited about it. And that's how I eventually, via medical cannabis, came to hemp in about 2015 when I moved from Chicago to North Carolina. And I was looking at what was going on with cannabis in North Carolina, and what was going on here was industrial hemp. So I educated myself about that, and I got 10 times more excited about that, honestly, than I ever was about medical cannabis.
Awesome. So you do have a little bit of a background in health as well?
Yeah. Well, I owned a yoga studio in Chicago. So I went from being a lawyer to a yoga teacher. And when I had my kids and I wanted to do something where, I could be with them and they could come with me. So I opened a yoga studio in Chicago and really got into the whole health and wellness world via yoga.
So cannabis is kind of like a natural thing as far as, looking at it from a health perspective. And did that play a part in why you got on board with it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I via yoga got into a lot of alternative healing and was really excited about cannabis and plant-based medicine and yeah. So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me more about now your interest in hemp and a broader spectrum besides just the medicinal uses of it. What is your journey from there?
Yeah, so when I moved here, I started volunteering with the North Carolina Industrial Hemp Association. I eventually became the president and the chair of the board of that organization, and that organization's mission was to in 2015, the 2014 Farm Bill had been passed and we could have research and pilot programs. So I was very involved in the lobbying effort for North Carolina to get a law passed here for hemp for research. So we did that in 2015 and then lobbying from there to get federal legalization, which we got in 2018. And and really looking at, what took off in the industry everywhere, not just in North Carolina, was cannabinoids and CBD production and extraction. And then, but looking at what the ecosystem is of North Carolina, and the ecosystem here is tobacco and textiles. So if you lay a map of the textile belts and the tobacco belt, they almost overlap. And so the real opportunities here in North Carolina were for growing high value flower for the smokable market. And, many states tried to ban smokable flower. So our organization was successful at fighting the legislature to not ban smokable flower.
Awesome.
And the reason we did that was because there's a lot of people that, there's a lot of pain receptors in the lungs and that think that that's the best uptake method for them. And we have a lot of tobacco growers here that know how to cure tobacco and know how to grow high value tobacco. So it's kind of a natural fit for them to pivot in that direction. And then what we're seeing now really taking off is fiber. And that's because we have a lot of textile infrastructure still here. So that's where there may be, especially as people bring on different genetics that may be, dual cropping or tri-cropping, some grain production here. But, I see mostly fiber and high value cannabinoids.
So are you talking to a lot of farmers in the area that are excited about going into fiber?
Yes, we are. And we have an event coming up, our 5th annual Industrial Hemp Summit, which is a multi-stakeholder, a B2B collaboration. And it's about bringing together the farmers with the corporations, with the government, with departments of ag. So we take a real multi-stakeholder approach to building the industry because we don't believe that you can build it from just one perspective.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done with that. And this year, there's a heavy focus on fiber this year.
Awesome. Yeah. So, the last time we talked, we had a very interesting conversation, and I'd like to touch on that. And it's the idea of globalization versus domestication. And I'd love for our listeners to hear your thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, I'm a both and person. So I do believe that we'll always have a globalized economy. However, I think we've gone so far in the direction of offshoring and outsourcing everything that we've become vulnerable as a country. And I think that's what we're really starting to see with the supply chain issues that came out of COVID.
Right.
So I think, what I would like to see as far as policy is I would like to see, and this directly goes into immigration, I would like to see us investing in countries, especially like Mexico, for example, where we have a lot of immigration coming from, and Central America. I would like to see us investing in hemp infrastructure and regenerative farming and things that help those countries be able to provide for themselves. Because, I also have a hemp foods company that I'm just about to launch, and I'm working with a man who's doing regenerative farming with mesquite in Mexico. And he's regenerating ecosystems. He's studied permaculture in San Francisco. He's doing some really cool things. He's employing women and children. And mesquite is just everywhere in Mexico. And he agrees with me that, when we have people leaving their countries and looking for opportunities in other countries, they don't want to leave. They want to stay in their country if there were opportunities there.
Right.
So I think there's, as opposed to foreign aid, or maybe in addition to foreign aid, not as opposed to, because foreign aid is needed for different things, right?
But that whole idea of teaching a man to fish rather than just giving him the fish.
Right. And creating win-win situations. I mean, it's a win-win that we don't have a massive immigration problem. It's a win-win that we're creating economies and more stronger trading partners for all kinds of goods at a relatively small cost. So as opposed to, I don't even know how much money we spend in trying to prevent immigration that is not legal. What if we were just to invest that money in helping those ecosystems develop and be able to provide for themselves, right? And regenerative agriculture ticks so many boxes for climate change, for soil regeneration, for really just, when we look at what do people really need, People need food and they need houses, right? And we both know that with hemp, we can provide both of that, both of
Yeah,
those things.
for sure. So what is your ideal, like, where do you see yourself in the next, you know, 3 to 5 years and in the marketplace?
Yeah, I've done a lot leading through trade associations and, trying to doing this multi-stakeholder thing, which those are all really useful things that I've been focusing on. But I think where I'm pivoting to and going to be spending more of my time in the next few years is just in being an entrepreneur and creating the markets and the demand for hemp.
Yeah,
Because I think, when I look at this multi-stakeholder collaboration that we put together, there's so many people that are important and that are researching the plan and that are doing, regulating the plant. There's not a lot of entrepreneurs. There's just not a lot of entrepreneurs in hemp. There's very, very few. You can probably name them on one hand or two hands. And that's, why. And I think a lot of it, especially, I mean, if you count all the entrepreneurs that are in the CBD space,
yeah,
there's a lot. There's a lot. But the problem with being an entrepreneur in the cannabinoid CBD space is that you still can't market your products the way any other company can market their products. You're still subject to not being able to advertise on certain platforms.
right.
So it's really an uphill battle in a market that is really, really saturated. How do there's obviously, lots and lots of opportunities in cannabinoids, but right now, until the FDA review, with the current policy of the FDA refusing to regulate a supplement route, it's going to be really challenging.
Yeah, yeah. And I think too, with the industry growth, the more that we can have more entrepreneurs out there and increasing the demand, then that will allow the prices to drop at some point as well. And it would become like a new normal, you know. I think that would be an awesome thing to see once we get to that point. So do you have any insights as far as getting to that point? What do you think are some of the challenges that we need to overcome?
Well, I would say the number one challenge is greed. But, that's in every industry. That's not just in our industry. But from what I've seen in cannabinoids is that prices have just, the farmers aren't getting a lot of money.
Right.
The processors are paying less, but that savings is still it's still not being passed on to the consumer in a lot of cases. I am starting to see prices come down in CBD because if we do want it to be like a supplement that is like a vitamin that people take regularly,
Yeah.
prices have to come down for someone to keep taking it consistently, which is one of the biggest challenges in cannabinoids is that it's so expensive. People try to make a bottle go a long way. And so I'm starting to see some like discount brands that are high quality. And that's what, if we really want to get this out as medicine to people, and it's challenging. I know it's challenging because there was a gold rush mentality when people got into it and the margins were much higher. So to accept lower margins, but you're helping more people, that's a pivot that has to happen. I still think, we have to have FDA regulation. There has to be regulation because having no regulation, there's a balance between over-regulation and having enough regulation to keep people safe. We don't have regulation to keep people safe in cannabinoids, stuff you can buy in gas stations, and there's no telling what's in a lot of stuff that's out there.
Right. So what type of legislation do you think would really open the market up and would be beneficial?
Well, there's legislation pending to try to force the FDA's hand, that Congress would say to the FDA, you have to regulate this. That, that's a slippery slope because regulators don't like to be told what to do. And there's a reason why, we have the three branches of government. That is not supposed to be the role of Congress. Congress passes laws and the administrative agencies administer them. But in this situation, it's a very tricky situation because the industry doesn't have the kind of resources that big pharmaceutical companies have. So the kinds of studies and the kind of data that the FDA wants is not something that the industry is used to or has the resources to provide. Although it's my understanding that the U.S. Hemp Roundtable has submitted stuff via their members, and that it's been very good science and rigorous clinical trials, and that the FDA is still not enough. So once you get that kind of adversarial relationship with the regulator, it's kind of challenging. But my biggest concern with cannabinoids is that, the prices are falling. The pharmaceutical companies are now buying them and putting them and doing clinical trials and using them for drug ingredients. The FDA's public position has been that we see CBD as a drug, and they can't see a supplement route for it. So my concern with cannabinoids is that it's just going to be eaten up by pharmaceutical companies, and there isn't going to be the entrepreneurial ecosystem we have now with supplements.
So what would you give advice to, the CBD entrepreneur right now, as far as branching out or navigating the obstacles now, and even what you're doing and what you said your focus is on is, entrepreneurship. So maybe you can give some, some good advice to the CBDs, entrepreneur. How can they branch out, or,
It's challenging because of the limitations they have with respect to advertising. And given that everything is going direct to consumer, that's really challenging. And I'm in the CBD food space, which doesn't have, I'm sorry, the hemp food space, not CBD, that doesn't have the same it doesn't have the same problems because hemp food has GRAS status. So some of our members have used an MLM model that has been successful. A lot of it is just gaining the trust of the consumers, that you have a high quality product. I think one of the biggest challenges is just it's got to be at a price point that people will buy it monthly on a subscription kind of basis and keep taking it. Because one of the challenges I think with CBD is that if you have symptoms like Parkinson's, or you have something that has outward symptoms or anxiety, and you start taking it and you start noticing a difference, then you're going to keep taking it, right? But for people that don't have those kind of outward expressions of illness, it's kind of hard to see what it's doing. And the anti-inflammatory neuroprotectant qualities is really good for you, but you can't necessarily see what vitamins are doing for you. Although I can, when I get run down, I don't take them all the time, but when I get run down, I notice right away when I start taking them. So it is that getting consumers that this is just a part of your daily routine. And building up that loyalty and that trust. And it's challenging when you can't go direct to consumer the way other companies can, but it's just building a brand. It's no different than building a brand with anything, except you're building a brand with your hands tied behind your back because you don't have all the tools available to you. I think it's also finding your niche. It's I've been to some hemp events where they have athletes have brands and they're targeting other athletes. And right now I just read the NFL is funding $1 million research study on CBD for pain.
Oh wow.
And so that's the kind of money now that's always been what's needed in the cannabinoid side, is because once that science is out there, people, that take it know it works and anecdotally, but
Right.
the science out there, you're going to convince a lot of people who need to see the science to take it. So that NFL study is out there. And then there was just 2 studies, one from the University of Chicago and one from Oregon State University, about CBD's ability to prevent COVID from, the University of Chicago study was CBD being able to prevent COVID from causing the virus to replicate.
Right.
It didn't stop it from entering the cell, but it stopped it from replicating. So there's a couple things out there on COVID, and a lot of people who haven't read the research, don't care, just trying to market
Right.
based on that. That's the biggest issues, is that you just can't make health claims and of any sort, which is also another problem in the supplement. And the rules are like, you can't even from a post from a customer. And so I do think, it's one of those situations where the industry got way out ahead of regulation. And now people don't know what they need to do, honestly, because everyone's been doing it for so long. It's become normalized, even though you're really not allowed to do what a lot of people are doing. So it is challenging, but I think, looking at those niche markets, like I know people that are going after, I saw a woman speak who's going after people that have had post like reconstructive surgery, and really finding your niche. And obviously people are going to be drawn to you if you've had that same kind of experience, and CBD helped you.
And as far as like regulations, like in the certain things that you can say, I mean, you can have more freedom in telling your own story, right?
As long as it's not on your website, as long as anything, like I highly recommend, I follow Asa Weinstein and his posts and on LinkedIn, and he has a lot of good free content about what you can and can't do, and he does a lot of webinars. He's, if there's like, they're looking at old blog posts. It's the latest thing that he was talking about.
I think I saw that.
So it's, it's like at the point where I don't know what you could say, honestly. And that's what you can say is limited, and how you can reach customers is limited. So, that direct consumer, that's why I think a lot of the retail stores did really well at the beginning, is because they were largely just educating. People would come in curious and educate customers. But with COVID and, the general trend away from retail, most people are buying online. So, it does get really, really tricky. And I think, sponsoring maybe live event, anywhere you can get live in front of people and educate, there's so much we don't know. So we do the science, and then there's so many people that still don't know anything about CBD, or that there's more than CBD in a tincture. And it's that whole thing of the industry kind of jumped on to, the consumer started knowing what CBD was, and so they just started marketing CBD. And even when they had full spectrum oil, and there's lots of other benefits in it besides CBD. And that's also confused the FDA, because the FDA, Epidiolex is a drug that is an isolated form of CBD, and it's gone through clinical trials. So when you talk about regulating a supplement, and then it's a full spectrum, oil, the FDA doesn't get it, because they're how they regulate drugs is via molecules. So they regulate one molecule at a time. They don't understand this concept of a whole spectrum and how cannabinoids are in a plant.
I think you made a very good point. I think, the education, I think, is so important. And so for that, from what I was hearing you say, for the CBD entrepreneur, get out there and start educating people, even about the different varieties, and, All those things I think will go a long way, as well as we wait for other things to catch up and more research, right?
Yep.
That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yep. And that if you're, you've got savings coming at you via your supply chain, it's like, look, everyone has to benefit in your supply system if you're going to have a viable business.
Right.
And the only ones that are getting squeezed are farmers, and the farmers are always the ones that get squeezed.
Yeah.
And you're getting cheap biomass, and you're not passing that savings on to the consumer. I think that's gonna be a problem.
Yeah. Awesome. So any other last words of advice? Anything hopeful?
I've always seen the industry just got sidetracked with cannabinoids, and it was, the latest, hottest thing, but we have to really take a holistic perspective
Right.
of looking at this industry. And we can't do the same thing with fiber and food. We have to look at, this is a new crop that has only been legal since 2018, and we're trying to build an industry. And it's only a few years old, and some people are already giving up and throwing in the towel. And if you have a long-term vision of this plant and this industry, you need to find other people that share your vision and collaborate. And it's time for consolidation on all levels.
Yeah.
Trade association level, at the people need to work together to survive. And it's always, I think, better to work together anyway, because it's more fun.
Yes.
But if you don't think it's fun and you want to be around.
Yeah. And I think we should have more of a collaborative mindset than a competitive mindset, because it'll go much further. And I think there's no reason to be that competitive right now, because there's so much opportunity. And if we can look at the opportunities more, and even like what you're talking about, like the niche, finding those niches and finding your own communities. There's an abundance, when we have that abundance mindset and help each other and share information, I think the industry will really grow much further from there.
I agree.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Marty. I really appreciate your time and sharing your expertise. Maybe you can also share about your event. Is it still open for others to register?
Yep. It's the Industrial Hemp Summit.net is our website, and it'll be held at the North Carolina Biotech Center this year, as opposed to, we've held the first 4 in Virginia. This year we're moving across the line to North Carolina. And we have Huber is one of our sponsors, Westtown Bank and Trust, which has been a really great bank that banks the industry. And this year VF Corporation, which owns 10 brands, including the North Face and Vans. So, really looking at, it's the first time a big apparel company has sponsored any kind of hemp event. And it's because I believe that we hold space for all the parts of a multi-stakeholder approach, because there are people in the industry that don't like government, and there are people in the industry that don't like corporations, and there are people that don't like this, and they don't like other people in there, whatever.
Yeah.
That's just ego.
Yeah.
And it's time to get over it and really look at the big picture. And the big picture is that we need government, we need corporations, we need all this, we need universities, we need researchers.
Yeah.
And we discount any one part as saying, no, we don't need that. And we just focus on, my own little world.
Yeah.
That's not what this plan is not about. Narcissism. It's not about being egocentric. It's for the full potential of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for spending time with us today at Hemp Foundation Talks, and it's been a pleasure. And we look forward to staying in touch and for your continued success and really the continued success as a whole for the industry.
Thank you. I really appreciate you holding these conversations. They're much needed. And thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Marty. You too.